impossible has happened! Unbelievable! No record for human life! Off to the races, can they catch it?
Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms. Bare-chested. Somebody stop
Look
that
out,
man.
here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here
They're
comes
coming
the
from
blue
the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
And now for our feature presentation.
Balls Deep with Devin Jovan.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Balls Deep. We're back on, welcome back. Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode of Balls Deep. We're on episode 11. We're doing something a little special this episode. We're dedicating it to UFC 251, which just happened this past Saturday.
And today we have a guest you might recognize from a previous episode. We got our friend Nico. Nico, how you doing?
Hey guys, how are you? I'm glad to be back.
Nico's just here. He's gonna break down UFC 251 with us, and we're gonna talk about, what's next for the fighters on this card, and touch on, what some of these divisions are looking like.
To start off, we're mainly speaking about the main card. We're only going to be speaking about the main card. So the first fight of the night was Amanda Ribas. She defeated Paige Van Zant by submission in the first round for the women's flyweight division. Kind of this happened, or the fight was pretty quick. So what were your thoughts on what happened, Nico? Kind of what do you have in mind in terms of what's next for Ribas?
Well, yeah, that was a good fight. To see Rivas take technique on the ground for sure. I mean, we knew she could deal with good jiu-jitsu players because she beat Mackenzie Dern before, but she made it look easy. Paige VanZant, a lot of people, they talk a little bit of smack about her because maybe she's not like an elite fighter, but she's a good fighter. She's proved it before, and but I was a little disappointed with her performance. Her grappling just wasn't there. She was trying to do the right things, but like Rivas was way too much for her.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, heading into the fight, I recognized that Paige VanZant was a big name, and that's kind of why everyone was really focused on it. But she hasn't fought in a while due to like her injuries. She broke her arm, I believe it was like 3 times before this fight. So it ended pretty quickly. I didn't expect her to win heading in, even though I didn't really know much about Ribas. But I just am impressed by Ribas because she was able to drop down in weight. Because her like native class is the strawweight division. So for her to drop down to flyweight and fight Van Zant, even though she hasn't fought in a while, and then beat her in the fashion that she did, was pretty impressive.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I didn't really know what to expect out of Paige after not seeing her fight for so long. I kind of wasn't surprised with the result. Ribas is really good. She's 10-1. She's on a 5-fight win streak. She's 4-0 in the UFC. She beat Paige VanZant and Mackenzie Dern now. So I feel like she's a potential up and coming good fighter. I'd like to see her fight somebody maybe just inside the top 10 or right around the top 10 like Tisha Torres. Like you said, her regular division is strawweight. It'd be nice to see her fight like Tisha Torres, who's also off a good win.
Yeah.
Um,
I know she had mentioned in her post fight interview or whatever that she wanted to get back into the octagon very soon. Just because she's got the ball rolling in the right direction, and she wasn't really impacted by this fight. She didn't really do any damage. I know she was bleeding from her nose, but I think it was more of a nosebleed. And then she finished within round one, so it's not like she couldn't go another fight right after.
Yeah, she has a lot of potential, and she also her personality is very like, she's always like hyper and stuff, and people like that. And now she beat Paige, so she's, people are gonna. She was in the main card of a pay-per-view, a big pay-per-view, so that definitely put a lot of eyes on her. And I think you can just give her any top 15. It's fine, it's just give her a good fighter, and I think she'll probably beat a top 15 fighter, and yeah, keep building her name up.
I mean, right now before this fight with Van Zandt, she was ranked 14 within the strawweight division. So she's after this win, she's gonna get a boost up. So like Tipo said, I think the next thing for her would be a top 10 opponent within the strawweight division. For me, I think someone like Jan. Don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I'm not gonna even try. I don't want to butcher it. But she actually has a fight coming up against the number 6. So she's currently ranked 10. She has a fight coming up against the number 6 fighter in Claudia Gadelha, which would be very interesting. So I think the winner out of that fight, due to how fast everyone seems to be wanting to fight after during this pandemic. So I think the winner out of that fight between Jan and Claudia would be a nice opponent for Ribas moving forward.
That'll be a big step up for her, but I mean, why not? I mean, yeah, for sure. It's just you definitely, if you do that, you're feeding her to to the sharks. Maybe a little too fast, but I mean, she's proven to be good. It's weird to see a lot of women with good records like her. She's 10-1, and a lot of the women have like not the best records sometimes, and so yeah, I mean, why not? I think she deserves definitely a top 15, probably a top 10 now. Yes.
I mean, currently she's ranked 12. I looked
Yeah.
at the rankings, and I believe that's the most updated. She's 12. Like I said, Tisha Torres is 11. I think if she were to get a win, that would, propel her into the top 10, even maybe give her an opponent like Michelle Watterson eventually. But I think they give her somebody, too high up and kind of, it would feel like you're rushing her after only 4 fights in the UFC, So I feel like Tisha Torres would be a good opponent, not that good a record. I believe she's like maybe 16-5, something around there. And I feel like, although she doesn't really have, the record, she does have that, that veteran status. She's fought a good amount of times.
Oh yeah, she's a huge. She's definitely a veteran. She's been around for a while. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great fight for her. Yeah, like I said, you don't want to, you want to give her uh, a really, really, really good experienced fighter right now. Maybe that's a good fight for her right now for sure. Yeah.
With that being said, we're gonna actually move on to a women's strawweight fight, which was the next fight on the card between Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade. Rose actually defeated Andrade by split decision, which it was a really good fight. It was actually fight of the night. I kind of predicted it was going to be fight of the night, and it lived up to that prediction because sure enough, it was a pretty close fight throughout, and Rose came away with the victory. I'm kind of happy she bounced back from her last loss between her and Andrade. So it'd be nice to see what's next for her. What do you think, Jovan?
Honestly, it was a great fight. Very, very close. Rose kind of just barely came up away with a close decision. Ultimately, after her getting the win, I'm inclined to say that she should get a, chance at her belt or at the belt she used to have. Obviously, she was the number one, contender, and Andrade was ranked second, I believe.
Yep.
So
it was almost like a title fight.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I'd like to see her, fight for her title eventually, but at the same time, with having Joanna and Zhang Weili having one of the probably best fights of the year, probably the fight of the year, a lot of people want to see that happen again. So even though we'd get that possibility of Joanna and Rose fighting a third time, with Rose already up 2-0, I think the rematch for that fight is kind of the way to go right now.
Yeah, look, that fight was amazing. Like it's just Rose is so good, with like she's such a good striker, but Jessica, she made the adjustments because the first fight she was getting beat pretty easily, and she definitely made the adjustments. She was moving a lot, like a lot of head movement. You could tell she switched it up completely. And at the beginning, she was catching Rose, but it was just single punches that you could tell Rose could take, and and she was hitting her more. But towards the end, she turned it up, and she was hurting Rose. I mean, you could tell Rose's face was beat up, and I mean it was such a good fight. I mean, I was expecting a good fight from them, but that was that was more than I expected, to be honest.
I think one thing that Rose made an adjustment on from the first fight was she wasn't staying stationary. She was actually moving around. Because Andrade was throwing power punches after power punches, and the only reason why she wasn't landing them in the beginning was because Rose was moving all over the place, and bouncing around, which is why Rose was winning the beginning of the fight. And Andrade turned up at the end because Rose was getting tired and becoming more stationary, and she was able to land those punches. So, like I said on fight night, if that fight was a 5-round fight, I see Andrade actually coming away with the victory. Just because she's turning up at the end of the fight.
And that's kind of why I say, like, I'd like to see her maybe fight the winner of Joanna versus, Zhang Weili again. Because had the decision not been so close, I would have, I probably would have just said automatically, give Rose that, title shot to get back what she once had. But it being as close as it was.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I didn't think about that. I mean, look, Joanna, like I love Joanna. She's a legend, but I kind of want to see Rose fight for the belt. I mean, it's hard now because of that great like first fight, but I mean, Rose, she kind of deserves. Like, look, she won the title. She beat Joanna. She knocked her out, and then she beat like not easily, but it was a unanimous decision. And then, I mean, the way she got beat by Jessica the first time. I mean, she was beating Jessica up. She made a mistake and she got slammed, but I mean, come on, man. I think she deserved the title a shot again. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Joanna gets it, but I mean, I kind of want to see Rose. It's just
That's why for me it's
hard.
tough. I said that's
Yeah, exactly.
honestly I think it should be Rose versus Zhang for the title shot, but just the fact that it was so close and
Yeah.
having Joanna and Weili have such a good fight like that, that's what makes it tough for me.
I mean,
I wouldn't be opposed to either.
I kind of see where you're coming from, Jovan. I mean, both fights, like the fight with Rose and Andrade and Joanna and Weili, they were both super close. So you would obviously want to see another fight, especially with Andrade and Rose being split 1-1. Why not have a third one to kind of break the tiebreaker? But it's kind of hard to disagree, being that Rose just beat the number 2 fighter and she was number 1. Yeah. So then basically, I see the best bet would be to maybe have those fights down the road, but kind of give Rose that opportunity to win that title back now against Weili, and maybe even put Joanna up against Andrade, and the winner of that would then face the winner of the Rose Weili fight.
It'll be cool.
I feel like that's the best bet, and then obviously have the rematches down the road. That way you don't have them back to back.
I agree. The only thing about I was thinking the same thing. The only thing about that is I think it would be cool. Like, it would be cool if there's a trilogy for a title fight, with Rose and Jessica. The only problem is I really don't see, like, we're looking past like like Weili, and I don't think she's gonna get beat. So any fight right now, and yeah, exactly. Any fight right now.
Weili seems to be going in the right direction. She's on fire.
Yeah. I think any fights right now, like in that top 5, top 3, 4 with Joanna, I think they'll all be great fights. Really, I won't be mad about any of them, really.
Well, to go on from there, then we're gonna go on to the bantamweight title fight between Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. They fought for the vacant title, and Peter Yan won via TKO. What'd you think, Devin?
I don't like going in. I was very upset about the matchup to begin with. I didn't really like the matchup between, I think Peter Yan was ranked 3 and Aldo was ranked 6. I didn't think Aldo deserved to be in the title fight. I think Yan did, but I felt like it should have been Yan Sterling to begin with. Aldo, I just felt like was there because of a big name. Dana White, I know mentioned like he proved all the doubters wrong, but in my eyes, he didn't really prove anyone wrong. Like it was a close fight throughout. Like each round was a close fight, but I didn't really have Aldo winning a round. If anything, he won round 2. But the thing is, Peter Yan was kind of piecing him up at the end of each round up until the stoppage in the 5th.
I mean, look, that was a great fight. That was an amazing fight. I agree with you. I think John deserved the title shot, but not really Aldo. But Aldo, bro, he's a legend.
Yeah, of
He's
course.
probably for me, he's the best like featherweight ever. So, I mean, I understand why. I mean, I get why Dana picked this fight. I definitely do. Like, I know like why he put it together. I mean, Sterling, as much as I like him, he's one of those guys that he likes to disagree with Dana, and Dana doesn't like that. So if he gave him some trouble, Dana was probably looking, past him, and he saw Aldo, a legend, fighting for, if he would have won, he would have been a
Yeah.
champion in the second division. That would have been a big deal. So, I mean, I understand why he put it together. And look, he was right, man. Aldo's a piece still, and he's still young. People think he's old because he's been fighting since he was like 18, but he's a monster. And but Jan, he definitely impressed me because I knew he was ready, but he fought against Aldo like this time. Like he stood in the pocket with him and he took Aldo's he we saw Aldo leg kick again, and it was amazing. But that wasn't enough, And John, he's a monster, man, and I want to see him against Sterling now. Sterling, he deserves it now. So they're saying Moraes, Garbrandt are gonna fight around October. So why not? Give Sterling the shot. He
I
deserves
mean,
it, and that'd be a great fight.
Mariah's actually just tested positive for
Yeah,
Corona, so
yeah,
I don't know if he's gonna be fighting anytime soon.
Which is the only other opponent other than Sterling.
Yeah.
But honestly, I thought it was a great fight. I thought it was a
Oh, yeah.
close fight, about probably the
Oh,
first
yeah.
3 rounds, and then
Yeah.
Jan kind of just took over in the 4th and 5th in the championship rounds. Kind of like Nico said, I saw a lot of those old like Aldo leg kicks that he's known for. But Jan showed a lot of patience in his exchanges, especially when they were on the ground doing, a lot of clinching and stuff. He was very patient. Even ended up getting Aldo almost in a crucifix at some point, which did a lot of the damage. So, as far as the next opponent, I think the only really fight, it's kind of a no-brainer for me, is Sterling, especially with Moraes, testing positive now.
Yeah.
Which was probably the only other fight to make.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's one more, but it's kind of just lurking in the distance, and it's the fact that Cejudo retired, and there's always the possibility of him returning. He says he's only going to return against Volkanovski. But after that fight that Jan won, he hit Twitter and kind of was talking shit to Jan per usual, or like he's been doing. So maybe he steps out of retirement and to prove himself once again. Like we all know that he's a great fighter, but he seems to always want to shove it in everybody's face.
I just see no reason to.
I know, but it's like, what's the purpose of retiring if you're just gonna keep calling people out on social media?
Definitely.
So
but
that's the only fight.
Like,
I agree that Sterling is the only fight to make right now, and I think deservingly so. He deserves a fight. Although he fought a great fight. I see why Dana put him in there because he is a big name. I mean, it was his only second fight within the bantamweight division, which he lost both. But the big name itself is what sold tickets or helped sell tickets at that. So I see why he did it. He did a good fight. I mean, like you said, within the first 3 rounds, it was pretty close. I had 2-1.
Yeah.
Well,
Jan at least, but then uh, like you said, Jan just took over and kind of attacked him. So Sterling's the only really
yeah,
fight to make.
and I feel like that's. I mean, obviously, ultimately, it's up to the UFC, but I feel like that's gonna be the difference between the champion you see in Yan and Cejudo. I feel like Cejudo was fighting, the bigger names. Might have been going for other titles and stuff like that. I feel like with Yan, you're probably gonna see a lot more him wanting to sign contracts to fight the number one contenders. He wants to
Yeah,
fight the
I
next best
agree.
guy.
Yeah.
He's a little different than Cejudo in that sense. So I think
Yeah.
for UFC fans, I think he's gonna be a lot better champion in terms of next guy in line.
Yeah, so like I see what you mean. I mean the division's stacked. I mean, especially after
Oh yeah.
250, it proved itself on what's to come in that division. It sucks that Cejudo left because he was another great fighter within that division.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, the matchups to come are going to be crazy. I mean, just speaking of the end of the top 15, like Sean O'Malley just won and he already signed up to fight in 252
Yeah.
against
He's a monster.
his next opponent. So it's just and
Quintana.
he's a up and comer. So and that's
Yeah.
at the bottom half of the top 15. So just imagine
Yeah.
the top 5, top 10. Like Cody Garbrandt is
Oh
Cody
yeah.
Garbrandt 2.0. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be crazy. Like Jan's gonna
That's a
have
that's
some
division
matchups,
stack.
good matchups ahead of him.
Yeah, no, that division stacked and yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I like as much as I mean Cejudo, I never like he's I get what he does, but I mean if he would have stayed, I mean look at all the matchups you can make in like, any matchup. That bantamweight division is insane right now. So yeah, exactly. I think Sterling deserves a title shot for sure. But I mean, after that, you could do whatever you want with them. There's so
I
many good
agree.
fighters, but yeah, I mean, but I agree with you. I think Peter Yan, he's gonna want to fight the best, but I mean, like, in that division, there's like I said, there's so many matchups, like some great matchups. So it's gonna be great, bro. It's gonna be great.
No, yeah, it's exciting
I'm
future to look
excited.
forward to for sure with a lot of these divisions now. You know.
Yeah. There's so much talent in the UFC in general, but those lower divisions, I mean, they seem to have like the most talent. Like I said, this whole top 15. It's like insane. Even the 15 guy, it's like a monster. So yeah. Well, it's gonna be fun for sure.
Definitely. We'll be right back with more balls deep.
All right. All right, we're back. We're about to jump into the co-main event, and we'll then follow it up with the main event of the evening. So the co-main event between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. It was a great fight, very controversial. This is kind of one of the reasons why this pay-per-view was more of a disappointment to me. It kind of just dampened the pay-per-view in a way. But Volkanovski ended up defeating Max Holloway by split decision for the featherweight title in the rematch. What were your thoughts on how everything went down, Nico, and what do you see as possibly the next thing for the division?
Well, that's a hard one, because I mean I think it was a great fight. It was a great technical fight.
For
It
sure.
was they're both great strikers, but they're very technical. They're not like huge risk takers in the chance that they're not like knockout artists either. I mean Holloway has a lot of finishes, but I mean I knew it was gonna go like this in a way. I didn't see it going any other way. I mean, Volkanovski tried to mix it up, and he went for a takedown, but I mean, they were mostly standing up, and that was a hard fight for me to pick. I really the first fight was really close, but I ended up picking Holloway to win because I just I knew he was gonna make the right adjustments and implement them in the fight, but um, look, I hate split decisions. I hate it's only two votes versus one vote of three people, but at the end of the day, look, I don't know, like it's hard. I mean, I thought Holloway won the fight too, but it was a close fight at the end of the day. I mean, maybe at the beginning, Holloway had, maybe a couple better, he had a couple punches that, hurt Volkanovski a little, but, but, he was never in like real trouble. And look, he ended up having more. He got more hits in than Holloway, and I think what Holloway did wrong was putting his pedal off the gas. He did great the first 2 rounds. It's obvious he won those 2 rounds, so why not keep doing the same thing? It's working. I mean, it's he if he would have not put the like if he would have kept doing the way he was doing the first 2 rounds, I think he would have gotten the decision, because the first 2 rounds were very clear that he won. So I think it was a big mistake on his part because you can't leave it in the hand of the judges, especially if it's a close fight. I think it was closer than he thought, and like, what happened?
I'm sorry.
We're not laughing at you this time.
I'm not laughing at you.
We're laughing at this guy. But continue what you're saying.
I apologize.
Well, I forgot, but
This man
was looking elsewhere. But yeah, so he doesn't remember where he was, but so I'll just jump in. But I think the fight was a really great fight. I think Holloway made the right adjustments from the first fight in the first few rounds. It was kind of surprising how he was able to make those adjustments because he didn't have a spar partner leading up to this fight due to the pandemic and him being stationed in Hawaii. So it was pretty interesting. I mean, the leg kicks killed him in the first fight. They killed him this fight as well, but not nearly as bad. I think he won the first 2 rounds convincingly. And Volkanovski, with his adjustments in the later rounds, ultimately won the 4th and 5th round. The fight ultimately came down to the 3rd round, which was more of a toss-up because that's when Volkanovski kind of made his adjustments. But for me, I handed that round to Holloway just because the significant punches or strikes, Holloway beat him in that round. So that's kind of why I gave it to Holloway. I think Holloway was robbed. It was kind of weird to see Dana White post-fight, and the media asked him about the decision, and he basically called out the judges, saying, never leave up to judges because they have terrible judges. And then when they asked him what he had to score, he just kind of asked a question back to the media, and no one had Volkanovski in favor. So for me, it's just kind of hard not to see a trilogy for this fight. Like, although Volkanovski won the first 2 fights, it's kind of hard to go against that for Volkanovski. Like, he thinks chapter's closed against Holloway, being that he beat him twice, but I think you have to reopen it and give the fans what they want.
Yeah, I thought it was a great fight, and I feel like it's going to get tainted by the fact that, a lot of people didn't think Volkanovski won. But it was a close fight, and I think ultimately what decided that was all the close rounds that we might have seen Holloway in favor of Holloway. Maybe the judges gave that to Volkanovski with, not much going on. Like, especially those real close toss-up rounds, they're generally going to lean towards the champion. So I feel like that's honestly what happened,
Yeah.
Honestly, well, it was a close fight. I kind of had Holloway for the first 3 rounds, but that's the thing with the really close rounds against a championship, like a champion, you can't leave that up for debate.
Yeah, and I know previously when we won one of John Jones, I think, last fight, and everyone thought John Jones lost, you were sitting there saying, when you're in a title fight, you have to beat the champion convincingly, or else you're not going to win. In this case, Holloway, he won, but maybe it wasn't as convincingly as we the fans thought in comparison to the judges.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
No, I was just gonna say that's the issue. Is like, obviously we want the guy who wins to win, but when you have a round that you say like, it's a toss up, if you feel that way, the people judging the fight, they only really have one thing to base it off. If it's that close, and this guy's supposed to be dethroning this guy, so he's obviously got to do a lot more. It's kind of hard to swing another fight considering Holloway's 0-2, but then when you have Dana White say what he said, it's kind of hard to think past it. You kind of have to see a third trilogy fight and give Holloway the opportunity.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we also, or maybe well, not we, but most people, think Holloway won so convincingly is because he won the first two rounds clearly. And then the other rounds, I mean, maybe the last round was definitely Volkanovski, but then the other rounds were very close.
Yeah.
So what happened? I
Yeah.
mean, there's a scoring system for a reason. Unfortunately, they gave those rounds, they were close rounds, and they gave them to Volkanovski. I mean, I think people are seeing it this way because those rounds were really close, and then the first two weren't that close. So people are like, well, I mean, he won those two rounds clear, and the other ones were like you guys said, maybe toss-ups, but I mean, there's a scoring system for a reason. They two judges thought he won three rounds, and that's all it takes. And it doesn't matter how you win them. It doesn't matter if there's super close rounds. You just gotta win the rounds. And even
Yeah.
if Holloway won clearly the first two rounds, that doesn't mean anything if he doesn't win the next three. And that's why
Yeah.
maybe people think it's so controversial. I mean, it's definitely controversial anyways, but I just think people made it worse for that reason. But I mean, yeah, you could make the trilogy, and I don't think anybody would be mad. I mean, there's a lot of good fighters in that division. You can make a ton of fights. So I think
Definitely.
anything.
I was thinking that another possible matchup would be Volkanovski versus the winner of Ortega and Korean Zombie.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
one.
that'd be a great matchup.
That would be too. And then also, like Cejudo, there's always a chance of him coming out of retirement, or
Yeah.
Volkanovski,
Yeah.
being that he won. So there's always an option. I'm not saying that should be the number one option because he retired for a reason, but he wants to come out for a money fight, which would be Volkanovski. I think a big part of the controversy though is because Max Holloway is a fan favorite. I know going in, I wanted him to
Oh
win
yeah.
just because I wanted to hear his post game or his post fight interview where he calls out DC like he usually does to kind of give us a good laugh. I mean, there was fans threatening the judges or putting death threats on the judges, and he spoke out about it, saying that he appreciates the love, but life isn't fair, and there's people in this world that are kind of dealing with worse situations than this. So he said to kind of ease up, which I agree. I mean, you kind of see why he's a fan favorite. Like he's a nice guy. He does what is necessary. I mean, it just sucks that he lost. I would love for him to get a third fight. It sucks that Volkanovski's win's going to get tainted because of it. I was hoping for it to be a kind of clear cut, just so they can go their separate ways and maybe meet up in the future. But in this situation, it's kind of hard to kind of go against it.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, anything right now in that division would be fine. There's a lot of talent, so I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Max maybe wants to take another. Maybe Max would like to take another fight before he fights for a championship again. Maybe he'll want to fight somebody else. Who knows? There's options. So whatever they decide to do.
Maybe Zabit?
Talk about him quite possibly moving divisions as well.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
I can see. I can definitely see what you were saying too, where he took his foot off the gas. Because when he hurt Volkanovski, he didn't really jump on it. He was more so just very mellow, and he just kind of let the fight come to him. But
yeah, definitely. But honestly, I don't know. Like I said, it was a close fight throughout.
For sure.
I feel like the reason maybe it looked like he should have won those close rounds is because he kind of pushed the pace most of the time. And I mean, neither fighters were really taking too many steps back. You could tell they obviously respected each other's, stand up. But at the same time, Max was kind of taking it to him. Max was pushing the pace a little bit more, and especially in the beginning rounds. So
In the beginning, it was for sure. I mean, you could tell towards the end. I mean, the last round. I mean, Volkanovski was pushing. He knew he kind of knew he was behind. So yeah, exactly. That shows you that. But like I said again, those rounds are even. They're very close. So
definitely,
I think Holloway in a way knows that. I'm not saying he thinks he lost. I'm just saying, in a way, he knows, maybe I should have kept pushing, maybe I should have kept, won those three rounds clearly, and then you could take your foot off the gas, and then relax if you clearly won, because those first two were clear for him. So if you win a third round clearly, or even the fourth, you take a rest, you rest up a little bit third round and you go hard fourth round, win it clearly, and then you're okay. I definitely have 3 rounds to two. Then but he didn't. After round two, they're close rounds. So
And
it
and
is
I
what
feel
it
like
is, like he says.
yeah, like I feel like Max Holloway is the type of guy. A lot of people don't really do it, and they, oh, I should have won that fight. I feel like Max Holloway is the type of guy that more so look at himself and say, did I really do enough to win the championship? Yep. And that's kind of the way you also gotta look at it when it comes to that fight. With such, so many close rounds and so many rounds, you're like, oh, it's a toss up. It kind of gives you the answer you're looking for.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, with that being said, we're gonna move on to the main event of the evening. The one fight that everyone seems to be looking forward to leading into this pay-per-view, with the animosity between the two fighters leading up to this matchup between Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. Usman beat Masvidal in won all 5 rounds. He beat him in unanimous decision. What were your thoughts, Jovan, and what do you see is possibly next?
Other than like a very impressive first round, I didn't really see another second in the entire fight that Masvidal was winning. Usman, I feel like won handedly. Like, he had a very dominant performance. It was nearly close to what it looked like he did to Tyron Woodley. I mean, he just kind of did whatever he wanted to. He laid body down on Usman for 25 minutes. You know what I mean? And he worked him. And ultimately, he fought his fault the smart way. Because I think if he would have stood up with Masvidal, which we kind of saw him do a little bit, and he was getting tagged up, I think he knew he wasn't going to get away with that. And so he did exactly what I thought he would, and exactly, how he was going to win.
And we kind of talked about it last episode when we both picked Usman to win. We chose him because of his ground game.
Yeah.
And we figured that if he were to stand up, like I said in the last episode, that I was going to see a Holly Holm Ronda Rousey situation again if he decided to just, give Masvidal these hands like he was claiming leading up. Like if he stood up and kind of played Masvidal's game, it was going to play in Masvidal's favor. And we've seen that in the first round. Masvidal looked super impressive. He came out the gate. Like you wouldn't have noticed that he was on 6 days' notice and just lost 20 pounds. He did look impressive. What impressed me the most was his takedown defense. I feel like not many people gave him the recognition that he deserved, and I feel like fighters should get like points for like those takedown defenses, because there's one point where Usman, like he's he's demolished people with his wrestling game and his takedowns, but Masvidal, people doubted it leading into the fight, and there was one point in the fight where Usman was 3 for 11 in his takedowns, which is pretty impressive. Like Usman still controlled the fight, and I'm not as impressed with the Usman win as everyone else is. I mean, he fought his fight. I mean, like, I'm not saying he didn't win the fight. I had him winning 4-1. There's 2 judges who scored a 5-0, but so I think he did win the fight awesomely. But I just wasn't as impressed. It wasn't as entertaining or as everyone would love to see. Like everyone wanted to see them strike on their feet throughout the whole fight. That's not what he chose, and he ultimately played the smart fight in because that's his game. But I seen on Instagram someone called Usman the best toe stomper in the business, because that's what he was doing for most of the fight against the cages. But I just feel like Masvidal deserves more credit than he has been given, just because his takedown defenses and throughout the fight still were impressive. Like he wasn't as active when he in terms of in the wrestling game or whatever, but he still looked impressive in the slightest way.
Yeah, I mean, so coming into this fight for me, the biggest thing was I picked Usman, right? But I for me was exactly that. are you gonna stand with Masvidal? Why would you stand with Masvidal? You know he has a great striking. You know, so that was my thing. Like that was my question. But you know he did exactly what he had to. Exactly like you guys said. I mean he did what he had to. He played his game, and I think he did the right thing. You know, and look, I agree with Masvidal takedown defense was amazing. It was great. But it doesn't matter. You couldn't get out of the clinch. I mean, he controlled him the whole fight. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I agree. I mean, maybe you know you didn't get you didn't Usman wasn't able to put a lot of damage on him because he wasn't able to take him down. But you still got control the whole fight. And I mean, I love when and a lot of people said like, hey, well, like, oh, like I hate this. Like Usman said he was gonna strike, and and he didn't. I'm like, why would he? I mean, he did exactly what he had to. He controlled the whole fight. I
I
mean,
mean,
it was like a Khabib.
when he did, it was just he was
Yeah,
getting
it was
tagged,
clear. Yeah,
and
it
that's
was
and that's kind of
exactly.
why like he realized that himself. It was like after he was getting tagged, he went to the ground game because
Yeah.
he went for a takedown because he realized that wasn't what was gonna win him the fight.
Oh,
So
100%.
But he did what he
He
had to. That's what
yeah,
he's.
yeah.
He did what he had
he
to do
played
to
he
win
played
the
the smart
fight.
fight.
I mean, well, I mean, like I said, I didn't think he was gonna stand with Masvidal because we know how good his stand-up is, and look, I mean, he never got tagged that badly, you know.
No.
It was very controlled. It was like Khabib. It was exactly like Khabib, you know. Khabib stands up with you, but just enough, you know. Once he feels oh, okay, this it's not going my way. Okay, boom, he goes to his grappling, you know, and that's exactly what Usman did. And look, I know it's not like a fun fight. You know, it's not a fun fight to watch. I get it, but you could tell like Masvidal knew it. He clearly knew it. You know, right after the fight, he was clapping and everything because he knew he got dominated the whole fight. He knew, and look, I give him the credit that like I said, his takedown defense was amazing, like you said. But bro, like people say, "Oh my God, he only grabbed him towards the fans." You know, yeah, like he wasn't better than Usman. He couldn't get him
Yeah.
off the fence. I mean, if you have to train for that, that could happen, and it happened. You know, it happened to him. I mean, that's part of That's part of UFC. You know, you have to. You know, takedowns are not like I said. It was great, but it still got control and dominated the whole fight. You know, he had to get out of there, and he couldn't. He just
Yeah.
couldn't. You know, and unfortunately, yes, I know it's not fun, but you gotta
Yeah.
give credit to Usman. I mean, I maybe like I get what when Devin says he wasn't as impressed, but exactly because he just did it. You know, he just did what he
Yeah.
had to. You know,
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's the
he was easy wins
ultimately
for
that's
him.
the thing. Everybody wants to give Masvidal credit, which he is deserving.
Yes,
But at the
yes,
same time, you have to think Usman took this fight on 6 days' notice too. He wasn't training for Masvidal.
yeah,
So just as I mean, obviously it's a lot worse on Masvidal the fact
yeah,
that he
yeah,
didn't have the training camp, but he's always training anyways. He's
yeah,
a fighter. They're
exactly.
always
Yeah.
training.
I
And they
mean,
were
The
talking
training
about
camp
you can
is for him to fight is for him to train for
yeah.
specific fighters.
And,
But Usman's basically went to waste as
yeah.
soon as it was a new fighter. So I
and
mean, you gotta
it's
still give him
I,
credit.
I mean, you can tell that he was training to just between his takedown defense because he was working with wrestlers
yes,
like Gaethje
yes.
and you can tell the improvement from past fights and now. So,
Yeah.
um, with that being said, what do you guys see in terms of what's next for the welterweight division, specifically Usman? But I know Usman had spoke at the end of the fight about how he wants to take a break and because it's been a long camp and he wants to give time to his daughter. So maybe he doesn't. His next fight isn't until next year. So that's why I kind of mentioned like, what do you see next for the welterweight division, or even Usman? Nico, you want to start?
Well, well for Usman, I think well, we know what's gonna be next now. Dana White already said Burns is gonna get next
Yeah.
for and I mean I agree with that fight. You know, I think that's a great fight to make. I mean he dominated Woodley in a way that he exactly almost did what Usman did to Woodley. And Burns, he's a different level of like he has a different level of jiu-jitsu. You know, he's not, even if he gets taken down, which he probably would against Usman. I'm sure Usman doesn't want to be in the ground with him too much. So I think that would be a great fight. I mean, and again, that division right now it's very good. So there's a lot of fights to make, but I mean, since we know it's gonna be Burns, I think that's a great fight. You know, I think that was the fight that was gonna happen, you know, and we're gonna. I think that fight's gonna be very close. I think Burns has a good chance of beating Usman, you know.
Yeah, I personally think that fight would honestly be more exciting than people probably would give it credit for.
Yeah.
Just based off the what you said, Nico, is like they're both, you know, high level ground games, you know, so that might leave them more inclined to want to stand up with each other, unless
Yeah.
they decide, all right, let's see who's gonna, you know, be better, who has better jujitsu, who has better wrestling.
Yeah.
But rather than doing that, they're more likely to, you know, stand up with each other.
I think although it's not the fight that fans want to see because it's not a big name like Jorge Masvidal. I just think that Gilbert Burns will give Kamaru Usman a bigger test, just because, which is going to be ultimately the more entertaining fight.
Yeah.
Because they know each other so well, being partners. So they know each other's games in and out. So they're gonna have to make slight adjustments to kind of surprise the other. And like you said, they're more leveled in terms of their ground game and their striking ability. So wherever the fight goes, it's going to be a test for the making, just because they're both good.
Yeah.
And I think Burns is the right decision to go. But with Usman wanting to take a break, maybe they lean in a direction where he actually fights Leon Edwards, and then
Yeah.
the winner fights Usman, because I know Edwards was supposed to fight Woodley first, but then they gave it to Burns due to the pandemic situation.
Yeah.
And also they called Edwards before they called Masvidal because but he was unwilling to take the fight on last minute notice because of this would be his first championship fight, so he wanted time to kind of lead up to it, which I understand.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean those are great fights, and like you said, if Usman wants to take a break, I mean Burns, he said it before, and we've seen it. He likes to fight. He wants to fight often, you know. So if Usman can fight, then yeah, I mean you could put Burns against anybody. I mean Edwards, you know, that's a great. I mean that would definitely make it a definite contender. And you can't forget about Covington. You know, as much as I don't like the guy, he's a good fighter, and it was kind of a close fight against Usman the first time. So I mean, maybe you don't give him the title fight, you know, directly, but maybe Covington Edwards fight, and you know the fighter and the winner of that, you know, it's a contender, or there's a lot of good things to make there, and good fights to make, and even Masvidal is still in the mix. You know, you can't.
Yeah. I was kind of had Kobe Covington there as well. The only matchup I saw for Usman was Burns. Obviously, if Burns doesn't want to wait that out, you could see him fight somebody like Edwards. But for Masvidal, I would like to see him against Kobe Covington.
Yep, that's
there's been a lot of chatter lately between the two about each other, especially Masvidal saying that Covington just talks and he never signs a dotted line. Obviously, they were on the same team, so you know there's a history there. I mean, Covington probably has history with everybody in that division, so you know he's a big name for any one of these guys next in line if Usman does in fact decide to take that time off. You know.
Yeah, and I was honestly just gonna say, like, you mentioned Kobe Covington, and I honestly think the best bet would be for him to fight Masvidal, being that they have history. Also, Masvidal is looking to bounce back and kind of jump back into that championship picture, and the only one really to kind of push him up would be Covington or McGregor, just because McGregor is the big name and he's looking to, you know, get his chance. But Masvidal, knowing that he wants to get paid, like this Usman fight was the biggest payday of his career, so McGregor just being another big name would be probably a bigger payday for him. So I think Covington would be the smarter fight for him. But if he's looking to get paid, there's always the McGregor option.
Also, Usman did say today he does want to fight again for the title because he said I'm stubborn. So basically, I mean, like we just said, if Usman does decide to take time off, if Masvidal really does want that title, step in and fight Burns. You know what I mean? Yeah. And maybe show against him why you deserve that title shot again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's that. Make sure to, you know, follow us on all social media platforms. We're available We're available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, even YouTube. Make sure to tune in for the next episode or next few episodes. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Nico, before we go, would you like to promote anything that you got going on?
Or just
Not really
say
right now. I'm
anything.
just well, it was great to be with you. You know, do the podcast with you guys again. I'm probably have Corona right now, so but it is what it is. I'm having to take some time off training, but I'll be back. And also, I'm wearing my Real Madrid jersey because we're gonna be champions of La Liga again this weekend. So yeah, man. But that's it. It was good to be here again. We gotta do it again.
For sure.
We enjoyed having you.
We enjoy having you. Appreciate you taking time and coming on the show.
Thanks for tuning
Sorry,
in
guys.
this week, guys.
Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.
You're talking about balls deep.
I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.